Hello. It is March 31st, 2026. It is time for another Geopolitics thought of the day. Today I am thinking about resilience. Why do states not buckle under pressure? A lot of states have been subjected to a lot of pressure recently. Most notably, in my opinion, and maybe the least remarked upon these days, is COVID. COVID stretched a lot of states really thin. It damaged economies, it killed a lot of people, and it created a sort of generalized atmosphere of distrust that is hard to quantify. But it's not just COVID. Post COVID or post 2022, we've seen a series of military conflicts that have begun partially with the assumption that one state is not going to put up very much of a resistance. The Hamas did not believe that Israel was able to, withstand a huge amount of damage going into October 7th. Russia did not believe that Ukraine would be able to sustain any amount of long-term military conflict, and seems to still believe that. They're still trying to fight an attritional war, which is, at really, really bad cost. They're accepting really dangerous uh, costs for their attritional calculations there. Trump believed that by attacking Iran, he would be able to sort of demolish the Iranian regime very rapidly because they would lose faith in their leadership. They would lose the morale required to continue. And sort of this hasn't happened. I really can't overstate how much this hasn't happened in any of these states. All of these states showed a remarkable robustness and an ability to sustain and endure a level of um, economic, military, and political crisis that people just weren't counting on. Um, I think a big part of the reason for this, though, is that contemporary strategists have declined to give their enemies sort of ways to walk away with um, ways to walk away with their pride intact. Um, Maybe Hamas less so. I think Hamas's sort of war goals were a little bit delusional, but the United States wants to destroy Iran entirely. Uh, the Russians want to destroy Ukraine entirely. And this is also really important in the case of Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainians only see their victory as a regime change in Russia, an end of Putin's government, which, in Putin's opinion, has existential consequences for him personally. So these wars have been extended, at least in part, because the parties that are involved have been very willing to make them into existential conflicts. And I think that's really interesting because, unlike, it's tempting to think of like contemporary military events in kind of the lens of the cabinet wars of the 19th century, or the limited wars that sort of gradually expanded uh, until we got to the um, Second World War. So that was the Japanese invasion of China, the Spanish Civil War, the Italian invasion of Abyssinia. You probably know them all. Why are policymakers so willing to go to war for existential reasons these days? I think that's worth like asking. Why, if I'm making policy, am I willing to wager everything on a total transformation? If we sort of sit back and look at it objectively, I think it's difficult to sort of see a path to a transformation coming out of many of these wars. And yet, that's what people believe will happen. Um, Hamas believed that their invasion of Israel was going to lead to the destruction of Israel entirely. Um, Russia believed that by invading Ukraine, it would set in play a series of geopolitical events that would lead to Russia's return to the world of the superpowers. Uh, Trump believed that invading Iran is worth it for sort of some kind of long-term American security benefit. Now, far be it for me to gainsay these august personages, but I think there has been maybe an overestimation of the ability of war to achieve political ends, and maybe a refusal to compromise on political ends, a refusal to compromise on perhaps the legitimacy uh, of other states. So I think about this with Iran and Ukraine specifically. And also an inability to set good strategic objectives. I think when I say inability, I don't just mean like a psychological unwillingness. I think in some cases there's been a real people are really stuck. I think Hamas, for example, was really stuck because the Israeli strategy of containing Hamas and sort of slowly squeezing Gaza put them in a strategic position that they could only react to by attempting to break out of that siege violently. And the Russians set themselves a political goal that they just couldn't meet with military ends. They're not able to compromise on Russia becoming a superpower, but there's no you can't fight your way into a bigger economy. You can't really fight your way into global prestige. You can't really fight your way into increased productive capacity. That's just not kind of the way these things happen. And maybe an inability. Well, okay, I'm rambling now, but the Russians believe that the Americans sort of sabotaged the Soviet Union's like political strength, and I think it's possible that they have sort of stopped believing in economic growth as a world of as something that policy can achieve, and have started really thinking about it as something that they are being divided from, something they're being kept away from. And I guess there was the reaction to that is just going to war. I think those are some of the issues that are facing us today. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts or disagreements with me. That has been your thought for the day for March 31st, 2026.